Hello, welcome to my life in pixels. This is not the first time that I've tried to do this introduction because I just got interrupted by my boyfriend bringing me a glass of fizz, which is very nice of him, although mildly inconvenient. But you know what, this take is already much better than the first one. It is nearly Christmas time, so I guess this is like the festive edition of the podcast, although myself and Tobiwan, my esteemed guest, don't talk about Christmas at all. But I hope that wherever you're listening to this in the world, maybe you're listening to this a long time after it's released and it's not Christmas, it's probably summer, but if you're listening to this just before Christmas, I hope you're having a really great festive season. You're not too stressed or burned out, you got all your shopping done and you are ready to relax. My conversation with Toby lasts for about an hour because there's so much history with this gentleman, starting from his roots in Australia, doing Call of Duty, and actually musical theatre even before that, which we briefly discussed, through to him becoming one of the world's most iconic casters, particularly known for Dota 2. So we talk about Dota 2, we also talk about Toby's foray into other scenes like PUBG. That's when we first worked together. So we talk about PGI 2018 at the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin from last year. And of course, I keep doing this. I keep mentioning meeting Dota talent at ESL1 Hamburg. I promise you next year, that's going to cool off. I think it's just because I've had a slate of guests who've been connected to that green room and I'm just sound completely obsessed like a mad stalker. So I'm just going to drop you guys into this conversation with Toby now, beginning with my absolute delight to find out that his mother was an opera singer. Hello! We are here. We're here to talk about you, Tobiwan. And obviously, I went on the internet. You actually have a Wikipedia page. I feel like that's how you know you've made it as a caster. You gravitated beyond Liquipedia and you're on Wikipedia. Wikipedia.
I'm fairly certain that wiki page has almost nothing on it though. Like, it is not filled in at all. And the only reason the Wikipedia page actually had any content on it was I looked up one time and said, man, you know, casters don't have any of their stuff ever filled in. And I said this one time that's back when I used to stream. And one of my followers, I just went on there and just started plastering it with every single thing they could possibly do. Because until that point, like people were believing what was on the wiki page, which said that I was a commentator because my mum was a commentator.
Oh, wow. So she wasn't a commentator then?
She was not a commentator.
I'm very disappointed. My dreams have been dashed.
Well, it's just like, well, when I started being a commentator, there was no commentator for eSports, and she wasn't a commentator for football or anything like that. She was an opera singer. She was an opera singer,
Really? What kind of opera singer? Was she mezzo? Was she coloratura?
Soprano.
Soprano, okay. So so not a mezzo soprano.
No. Full on, blown up diva, soprano, lead roles, did light opera, so a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan. I did musicals with her as well back in the day. And we would go around and sing different things. And so we'd do like the retirement homes and go around there and do like put on little concerts for them with just the two of us.
So you weren't really video gaming when you were younger then? You were doing Pirates of Penzance with your mum?
Most of the time, yeah, I was doing sports. I was doing theater. When I did have like some old consoles, but I'm never gonna be that person. Like you have those people when you describe like how'd you get into gaming, and like well, I was back in the Sega Master System days, and I played Alex the Kid, and I just knew exactly the right combinations to win at rock paper scissors. Like I don't start myself as that. Like I played computer games because I enjoyed it, because I wagered my cricket cards with my brother playing on like a crappy little, like I always called it a Tandy computer because it came from Tandy. I didn't even know what the computer was. It could have been a Commodore 64, but I have no idea. But we would just play these one-on-one fighting games. Like it was like I was actually more part of the FGC before I was part of anything else. And we would put down our favorite cricket cards. Like, okay, let's challenge at this one. We stopped doing that after a while because my brother could never win. It was like playing board games. He just never won, and he raged, and it wasn't pretty.
And now video games is your life. Do you miss the music side of things and performing in that sense?
I definitely miss the family aspect of what comes with theater. Like you literally have a family for, well, back then, like it was probably like 5 months you would do rehearsals for, and then 1 month of actual show. So yeah, it's like a 6-month family you have, and then you can come back like next year or whenever the big shows happen again, or you get a role. And I definitely like the limelight. and the ability to remove yourself from reality, which comes with musical theater. So yeah, I definitely miss a lot of parts of it. But there's also a lot of parts that I don't miss. I think it's something to do it full time. Like it's always that thing. Like, do you want to do it and be happy that you can do it full time, but you'll be in the chorus, or do you do it like casually and you can be a lead? Like which one are you more happier with? Like, what is your real motivation here?
Yeah.
And I was looking at theater back in the time when like I always think like the original artists, they just need to do one thing great. Like all you have to do is sing, and if you're a great singer, you'll be remembered. Like, and that's the way to go. And when I started looking at theater, I started seeing more of like you need to be able to do two of the three things. So it's like acting, singing, and dancing. Like these, like the three things. And if you could do two of these, you probably have a good chance. You still have to be able to BS your way through the third. And I feel like now it's like you could be able to do all three. You need to do this by the age of 12 if you're going to be successful at all.
I was never a huge dancer or anything like that. Like, I like to dance. I stream Just Dance now, but I could sing and act. Did all my grades. Wanted to be an opera singer when I was younger. That's why I got so many questions for you. But never got to play Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd, sadly. Never really got to do big musical roles on stage, which is
if I was going to do Sondheim, it would not be Sweeney Todd though.
Really? Because it's really difficult.
Yeah, I'm going to sound really snobbish when I say this, but I don't actually find a lot of the songs challenging.
Yeah.
when seeing in musical theatre, like it was always just very, very easy to me.
But it's kind of it's pop music, isn't it? That's the thing. Like, most songs aren't that challenging in musical theatre.
It depends what you go for. Like, I did a lot of choral music as well as like Handel's Messiah. I got to tick that box as the professionals. Like, I've done this off by heart. Handel's Messiah. And I did light opera, so Gilbert and Sullivan, which I think it's less pop music. It's very quick. It's very patter song. It's a lot more elocution
Yes.
that has to come out. So like on that front, like I found that the most challenging thing. But then you go and do something like Rodgers and Hammerstein, you'd be like, man, this is really, really easy. Like, it's so easy. Yeah, so I never really found musical theatre that challenging. It was always just getting the role. It was probably the bigger challenge because I was way too young and way too ugly.
Oh, well, yeah, it blossomed into a handsome, talented man. So let's talk about that blossoming Tobiwan. Let's move past the compliment before I embarrass you too much. So how did you discover Call of Duty then? Because again, I call it the Wikipedia earlier, the Wikipedia, and it seems that Call of Duty was the thing that really got you into moving into gaming as a professional thing, or at least a full-time thing at the time, because it was 2004. Maybe earlier?
It was earlier than that. It was actually back in 2002. And I can't remember like if it was Call of Duty or if it was Battlefield in 1942. But basically, when I was graduating high school back in 2002, I had a mate of mine called Richard Ward, and he played on his team called ADF. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'll come and play. And then he was like, oh yeah, you can play this competitively. We play in a ladder. I'm like, what? I was like, okay. And there was short one person, so they got me to stand in. And like, I've hardly even played this game. And it was vanilla COD. It was like the original. And yeah, I kind of just like went in there and I managed to shoot the leader in the back of the head by accident in my first game. and from then I just like, maybe I should try and get better at this game. And like that's how I started Call of Duty. And I played Battlefield 1942 with my cousin James, who had his own team as well. And yeah, he was a real that was a really bad team name. It was called Arsenal.
Arsenal. I think that's copyrighted, isn't it?
ASNL, like as in the arsenal of weapons, not the Arsenal team. But even then, it was like, okay, whatever, man. And no, you can copyright it back then, but who's going to give a crap back in 2003, 2002, when you're playing on the online community in Australia as well? Like, no one looks at Australia.
Oh, well, you did the traditional thing when you first moved into commentating as well, which was using Winamp, same thing that like, DJ Wheat was using to cast Quake, for example, and
everyone was using back then.
Yeah, everyone was using it. So when did you discover that as a method? When did you realize you could actually start commentating as opposed to just playing?
So there was a group in Australia called GameStar, and they were actually commentating the leagues. And I had no idea what software they were using. I just knew it went through a server when you connect into it by clicking a web link, and like you'd listen to the audio. I had no idea how it would work. And I remember I asked these guys if they'd come and cast our league because I was managing the league at that time. This is like a couple of years down the track, like I think 2004, 2005. And I'm like, hey, can you come and cast this? And they're just like, no. We don't care about this. Like, this is the older version. You know how Call of Duty works? Every year you get a new version. Well, that was the problem. I like the older version, not the newer version. And they're like, oh, no, COD 2's the greatest. And I'm just like, man, COD 2's a piece of crap. It was so bad. Like, it was so bad in the early months. And it's like, this is the future. Just get with it. I'm like, no, I refuse. So, like, I wanted to cast it myself. And I was like, that's actually back when I was an analyst. I wasn't even doing the play-by-play.
So you're an analyst first. Wow, okay.
Well, because no one ever thinks of it these days. Like, no one ever would see me as an analyst, and I'm not the smartest tool in the shed.
No, listen,
in a lot of
Toby.
things.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yes, Frankie.
You are the greatest techies analyst on all of Dota 2, and we'll talk about that later. So do not sell yourself short, sweetheart. Okay, right, continue.
Trinity Mine's more difficult these days. But yes. So the first thing I ever did was actually Windows Sound Recorder. And I had no idea how the hell this thing worked. And I'm just like, oh, if I just hit record, it should record everything. So what I didn't know was you can't control the input volume because it's not as easy as it is these days where you right click on your little sound icon, you go to like your volume and your audio settings and you can change the in and outs. That didn't exist on the Windows back then. So it was literally just a straight input and that was all. And the audio was so heavily distorted and it was only me. I was casting with another guy, a guy who went by the name of D-Man. D-Man, not D-Man, not to be confused.
So not Lee
with
Demon Smith.
No.
Okay.
No. God, we couldn't connect Australia and the UK back then. I didn't even know who Lee was back then. So basically I was just breaking down the game and breaking down everything, and I'll call the action when it would happen too. And it was that's how I first started. And then eventually I found out about these things with like caster guides. That this group called GameStar had done because they saw me casting, and then like their head of marketing came over. It was just like, you're going to join us. And I'm like, that's fine, but I'm going to run your Call of Duty section. and he's just like, done. Okay. Yeah. So I actually ended up, even in the early days, I was training a whole bunch of new casters, and I created a group at the original point when GameStar said no. I made a group called UOT, the worst name in the history of everything, which was United Offensive Talkers, which was the expansion to the vanilla Call of Duty. So there were four of us, and if I can remember, like, was it Veriton, Demand, myself, and someone else? But we had four of us at the very beginning, so we came over and we started doing the Call of Duty stuff, and we started picking up more and more people. So we started actually creating some of the first educational material for commentators out there, where it would be coming on. It's like, this is how you build a system. This is how you use a male-to-male audio plug, install a sound card, and you get two sound cards to work so you can control your inputs without having to, because there was no virtual mixers, and no one could really afford a normal mixer. So it was like, yeah, this is how we first started doing it. So everyone was kind of helping out everyone, even scheduling. We started doing scheduling back then for all the leagues so we could cover them all.
Does it kind of blow your mind a little bit thinking back that far? Because you've been doing this for nearly half your life, I guess. About that. It's just a little under. It's been a very, very long time, and I actually kind of feel sad about it in a lot of ways because I don't think a lot of people understood what it was like back then. I think a lot of things get very heavily gifted to people these days, so there's not a lot of appreciation for the different things you get from both, like, just even in just esports production itself. Like, everyone's always like, what's the next big production thing? Show me something new. I always want something new. And people are just like, we're only just managing to nail down the basics. And they don't realize just how complicated all this stuff is. It's like someone like understanding like what a microchip is and everything that goes into a microchip. No, you just accept the fact that this is now part of a bigger thing. You never look at the tiny details anymore. That's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast and chatting to people like yourself and the British Demon and people like that who were part of esports back before it became the product we kind of know and we recognize today. What was your first brush with esports, though, before you even thought of commentating yourself? Can you remember the first thing you heard or saw?
Well, my first brush with esports, like in its most simplest form, was me playing in the ladder with my old classmate. Like that was it back in 2002. And that was it. Like I didn't watch anything beforehand. I didn't know it existed. The first time it kind of really blew my mind was when I went to Singapore. So this was in 2005, I think, 2006. I wish I could remember. I always get blurry on the 5 and 6. But I went there for the World Cyber Games. So the Singapore Nationals followed up by the Asian Championships. And I was originally not meant to go. I was actually really cut that I wasn't going to go. Because I'd been casting Call of Duty. Like I was doing like 200 games a year. And this is just as a volunteer thing. And this is back in like 2005 when like people would be like, wait, there's that many games in a year? So yeah, just like pumping out these games left, right, and center. And then there was a Call of Duty competition inside of WCG. I was like, I got to go. Like I've been casting all these teams as well. Like I've even been casting like Southeast Asia Call of Duty. I got to go. And GameStar in their wisdom said, no, we send people to events based on their veteran status. I was like, oh, okay. It's like, so they were sending a guy called EJ and EJ was there that time too, but they sent a guy called Bob and a guy called Glimmer. And this was basically their management and one of the founders, because they're just like, well, this is the first time we're getting a huge event like this over in Singapore, so I'm definitely going to go. It's like, crap. So yeah, and I wasn't going to go. They were going to send a guy called Momo, who was another Call of Duty caster along with me, and we were kind of pumping out more content than anyone in Australia at that point. Yeah, he couldn't go because he had a work thing he couldn't get out of. And they were just gonna not go with anyone. They're just gonna do it, the two of them. The three of them. Then this thing came up and they said, okay, so Dota. It seems like this is a big game over in Southeast Asia. None of us had heard of this. Like no one in GameStar had heard of this. And they were like, okay, so who's going to come over and cast this? Like we need someone who actually understands this game. And I'm like, oh, okay. I've played 2 pub games of this because my Call of Duty guys who played World of Warcraft played Dota. Long connection to then kick back in and go, yeah, okay, well, I played 2 pub games, and it turns out I had the most amount of experience out of everyone at GameStar with 2 pub games. And so the next thing I knew, I was getting on a plane, going over to Singapore and casting Dota, which I had no idea about, for a live audience of Southeast Asian hardcore fans.
And so that was when Dota was still a Warcraft 3 mod as well.
Correct.
How did that go?
Not well. On my side, I thought I was just talking absolute gibberish, but this is when you first understand what it's like to cast in front of a Southeast Asian audience. People don't care what you say because they can't understand it with the PA systems. So most of the time it was just tone. There was no live stream. There was no one online listening. There was no audio recording, even though we attempted that and it failed. I'm really glad that file is lost forever. So I think the best example would be is if you see there was a cast with Doa that he did at World Cyber Games in China, and they were casting and they were describing Nyx as armor bug and like basically just describing what's on the screen. And that's kind of what I was doing. And then they threw me with 2 other guys who were talking about like the analyst side of things. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do my thing and you guys do your thing, and let's see where we meet up at the middle. That's it. I still don't remember exactly what I said. I was massively jet lagged and very, very sick. So yeah, it wasn't great.
Did you know then at the time, though, that this was something you wanted to continue with? I mean, Dota not even being a properly released game, it's a mod. How can you see a future with that?
Well, beforehand, I didn't think esports had any kind of future. Before I went to Singapore, I literally just thought like I was having a good time. And this was just me with mates and just doing what I enjoyed. I never really saw it as a career. I actually was thinking about getting into game dev in some way, shape, or form because I thought this would be a lot of fun. And it turned out I had no knowledge and prowess in C++, and I can't draw for crap. I can't even do stick figures correctly. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going into game dev, and try to find another avenue. So I worked in retail for a very long time. But yeah, once I was over there, I was like, okay, this does actually have a future, because you need to be able to see what a community is like before you can think like, oh, this community exists. And the Dota community is just so damn fanatical that you just basically jump on the river. It's crazy how fast it swept me up. But even then, like, I was still doing Call of Duty and Dota at the same time, because Call of Duty it's what I knew, it's what I was good at. Dota I had no damn idea about, but people kept asking me to do Dota, so I kept doing Dota. And that's how it built up. It was literally not because I really wanted to cast Dota, because I was a lot more comfortable as an analyst. But yeah, it just turned into this thing that, like, I just kept doing and kept doing and kept doing, and became majority of my life.
How did you choose between Call of Duty and Dota?
So eventually Call of Duty helped with that decision. They released Call of Duty World at War, which was COD 5, and it was the worst game I think I've ever experienced. It was worse than COD 2. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out, and that was the final nail in the coffin for me. Like they removed left and right lean, they removed so much things. Everything was broken. There were bugs across every single map. Everything was just so spammy. There was no skill really in my mind involved in the game anymore. And at that point, I'm just like, you know what? I'm done with Call of Duty. I'm never going back. Dota, you're my full-time thing.
And then, it literally did become that. So I kind of want to fast forward, I guess, to the first TI. Did you sign with Freaks for You and join Dota before
Yes.
Dota 2 was released? So tell me about that. What was Joindota? Because you co-founded it, but then Freaks for You, for anyone who's not aware, it's a German-based kind of European agency. They produce events and they also have talent as well.
So Joindota kind of came about because of Moritz Zimmerman. Mooseman, who was running Farm for Fame tournaments with a guy called Holy Master, and it was basically out of something called Dota League, which was the biggest European hub for Dota games, and they ran everything for the Warcraft 3 Dota games. And Moritz wanted to try and build something up a little bit bigger, a little bit more professional, and he made a partnership with Freaks for You. And then he was looking for a figurehead, a commentator, to come on and do coverage. Because this was the winning combination, right? You have coverage, you can run tournaments, because that's what Freaks for You were also doing back then, because they were running Warcraft, Starcraft things. And then I would come over and do Dota. And it was a very dodgy way of starting up, because we knew Dota 2 was coming before it had arrived. Insider information, so we knew to get ready. So when the opportunity kind of presented itself, I actually knew of Freaks for You a year beforehand, because I was contacted by another one of their guys who was working there at the time, called Looseman. And he actually asked me to come over and cast League of Legends. And I was itching for a way to get out of Australia. I realized that there is no way that I can make a full-time career out of gaming in Australia as it currently is. There was too much corruption. There was too much money being bottlenecked up at management levels. Nothing was going anywhere. Which is kind of funny, because in the last 6 months, I thought it actually moved a lot faster than anywhere else. But yeah, I ended up getting a full-time job, and I was like, all right, guys, I'm out. But a year before, I actually got brought over for Dota 2 to do Joindota. I almost cast League of Legends. I almost cast the first iteration of the LCS.
Wow. I'm guessing you're kind of glad that you didn't sign your life to that.
Oh, it would have been a very interesting choice, to be sure. And at that point, like, I would have said yes, because all I wanted was to be able to do what I do full time.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger kicker would have been to be game specific, and that's something that even back then I didn't want to do. I always want to be able to cast multiple games.
But in a way, you still were. So Dota have you kind of? Would you say that you grew with that scene?
I'd actually say, like, at the start, I grew with Call of Duty. Call of Duty was definitely the place where I really started to develop more. And then Dota kind of grew me. It's kind of the other way around.
In what sense?
Well, it took me very much out of my comfort zone. Like it took me into like a hype play-by-play kind of role. It took me into an area where I wanted to talk about like parts of the game that I thought I knew about, but then you realize you don't know jack. So you always feel massively inadequate. So it kind of like pushed me out of my comfort zone, and yeah, but I definitely saw it as like as a big future forward, and luckily back then I was headstrong and egotistical enough that I'm just like, yeah, I can get away with this, and and I took some chances which paid off.
You're known for being part of every single iteration of the international. The 10th international is going to be in 2020, so surely you're going to be there now. I'm not a gambling woman, but I put my money on it. What was the first international like? Because I know it was at Gamescom.
Yeah, the first international was it's nothing like what it is today, which is actually not always a great thing. Like the first international was hosted in the middle of Gamescom. It was noisy. Like we didn't get to sleep. I was the only play-by-play guy there. I was casting with a guy called Slash, who was a German Chinese. I think he was actually studying at the time. So yeah, German Chinese student. Who just understood the Chinese scene. So I'm just like, oh, come on, cast. I didn't know anyone else to bring on because I'd only been living in Germany for like a couple of months. And like, who do you want to cast with? And I'm like, oh, this guy. Because the people I did know were playing in the tournament. So I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, so that was the first iteration. And we went through like 5 or 6 days worth of play. I think I maybe got like 10 hours sleep the entire time. It was pretty brutal. And it was very raw. It was, yeah.
And at the time, what did that mean for esports in general? Because it's 2011, so this is when esports is really starting to solidify as that entertainment product that we know it as today. And it had a $1 million prize pool, which at the time must have been unprecedented, I imagine.
Well, it was kind of funny. It changed I think the valuation of what was a successful game through prize money. Through how esports was then viewed. Like it was like, well, how many people are viewing your content? How many people have walked through your door? And then this equates to how many people have actually bought your content. Okay. So you put $1 million into, well, we actually ended up putting $1.6 million prize pool into the first TI. And we're sitting here in like a very small booth. Like it was pretty well built, but it was still small compared to like the one hall across, which was entirely filled with Blizzard. Insane StarCraft stage, insane WoW stage. Like the whole thing is just totally pimped out. You know they spent more than $1.6 million on this too. Like it's just top to toe, just nice quality. And then we're sitting there. It's like, well, all our money's actually in the prize pool, but everyone's talking about Dota, and they're talking about it because it's just like it changed the definition of what a big esport tournament is. And I think it's for both good and bad, because you have tournaments where like how many people actually watch the FIFA World Cup and go, I know how much money this team wins. And yeah, like most people would have no idea what the hell that number is. And most people don't care anyway, because you win to get like the achievement, the prestige to say like, we are the World Cup winning team. We are the winners of the international. That's the kind of thing, like the same kind of correlation you want to have. But then it stopped being about the winners of the international. It's how much money they took home. And then like money started to speak. And this became the primary focus of value for tournaments, which was hilarious because straight after that, like the first tournament that ended up happening after TI was a €500 cup that ran for 5 days with almost the same teams from the international, the European ones that could play and North American ones. And it was run by Joindota. It was run by JD. We're just like, okay, it was the BenQ Clash. And like, this is where you bring reality back down again once you get away from the developer inflated finances.
One of the things that I love though about TI now, although of course every year the prize money gets more and more, and it's, you know, funded by fans buying in-game cosmetics and that kind of thing, but I feel like OG have kind of taken the story and what the international can mean to a new level by winning twice in a row, but also the story that I think it was told in, was it called Against All Odds, the Red Bull documentary? Did you see it?
Yeah.
Where
Against All Odds.
Yeah, where you have Notel and that story of his relationship with Fly and how that all went down, I guess. And like learning more about that and hearing more about the mythology made me go, oh my goodness, I really need to be paying more attention to this, because I know and love the stories of the CounterStrike players that I'm interviewing and spending a lot of time with. And now I'm kind of going, oh my God, I need to like uncover this legacy, because there's so much that's happened and you've basically been privy to all of it. What's your favorite storyline, I guess, from your time in Dota 2 that you've witnessed?
See, this is going to be a little odd of an answer, because I actually feel like OG's storyline is by far the greatest storyline of any team that's ever hit Dota. And it's not even about like TI9. It's not about winning twice. It's just about the winning the once. Like the fact that you can get completely shredded apart and put yourself back together again and beat everybody else who said you could never do it. Like, that's the story in a nutshell. Like, you come to TI9 and now we've got a whole bunch of like quirky IO stuff, and they just start beating everybody down. They're full of the memes. It's like, feels very much like a fan service, and they're still able to come through, and then they win a second time and they do what no team has done before. But you still sit there going like, well, it's still a sequel to the first movie. Like, it's a great story to say like, this is where you've moved on to. But the first part of the story was still the best. And a lot of stories in Dota kind of get forgotten. They get doused in memes, or they get lost in what's the best way to describe that? It's like people don't really talk about a lot, or if they do, they try and speak very nicely about things. So it kind of gets lost in the fact that no one wants to offend. I'm
very guilty of that.
It's fine too, because you respect the players, I think, a lot more when it comes to esports than I think players are respected in mainstream sports. Like everything, like all dirty laundry is hung out to dry the second you become a public profile. I find like in Dota, I think a lot of storylines get lost because they get lost in the way the DPC's been built up, or the tournaments ran beforehand with third parties. It's great because the market's very free for people to do whatever the hell they want, but they still end up getting eclipsed by TI. So if you haven't really made a storyline at TI, then you don't really get anywhere. But even a storyline during the group stage of TI, there's 4 games going at the same time for 3 days straight for a 16-hour block. Your storyline gets lost because you just get buried in the tide that is just results and other moments that happen. So I feel like Dota doesn't really capitalize as much as tournaments like LCS or like Overwatch, where there's people really crafting the stories, and these stories have their space to breathe and to be the story for a while. And I think Dota doesn't really do that justice. So you need to wait until something like OG happens at TI for people to go, now I know this story. But what else is there in Dota to know about? You don't know unless you've been in the back scenes, and then even then you probably won't have people talk about it.
Would you then make a case for more leagues and franchising? Because you've mentioned LEC or LCS, sorry, and you mentioned Overwatch, and those are leagues. There's no flexibility for those teams to be outside of that. As the same for talent as well. It's a big decision for us or for a team to be part of that. So would you maybe argue then that stories are going to be better told if they are part of these leagues?
See, I've had this debate a lot, and my opinion keeps swinging back and forth because I see the advantages of franchises remaining. And I'm not saying like franchising where you need to spend 25 million to get into something. Like, I don't believe in that. I think there still should be a window of accessibility for every team. But the ability for like a brand to survive, for a brand to have strength to give to both the game and to exist outside the game is very important. I think branding for players is also insanely important because it should be their livelihood. They shouldn't just be like, well, I've won 2 TIs and now I'm set for life and I'm just going to like not do anything with my future. Like I'm go and get a real job with commas inverted. It's like I find that I feel like the LCS storylines, the Overwatch storylines are a lot better told, a lot better structured, a lot better paced out. And I think this is still, you can take a lot of great qualities from this and still put it into the free market third-party leagues just by creating a proper calendar throughout the year. Like, what is the transitions? And you can see the CS community try and do that recently too, like ESL and DreamHack combining their stuff together,
Yes.
Blast trying to do their stuff as well. But now the two of them actually butt heads, and it's like, well, who's really going to be on top of all of this? Like, where is a team going to play? Where are they going to be seen next? Is this now too much? Are you going to StarCraft 2 this, where every single weekend you've got this high quality tournament, but now nobody really cares because it's the same people playing every single time. It's always career winning or whatever. And you just lose the storyline because it's not unique anymore. It doesn't stand out. And I think that's when developers working with third parties makes more sense, just to create this better structured calendar season where they can play, and then to have this season reflected also inside the game. Like they try to do it with Dota by having multiple majors and then TI, and this would have worked perfectly because you had the summer, autumn, winter, like you do these type of majors, and then summer was TI, and then you can be like, oh well, we just do these themes inside the game as well. But it was never really maintained. It was never, I don't think, a fully fledged concept anyway. It just kind of was there, and we all saw it as that. So yeah, it's a very long about answer of saying I think franchising has, I think having a clear storyline with a clear calendar year makes a lot of sense. But what comes along with franchising, in my mind, I think either cripples or overinflates the value of the scene.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with CounterStrike in 2020 because of the ESL Pro Tours. You mentioned DreamHack and ESL teaming up. They have got the same parent company in MTG, and then Blast are changing their format as well. So as long as I get to be involved in some of it, then I'll be happy. But like, at least
for CS talent, like opportunities start popping up everywhere, and that's great for people who actually know how to grab them and take them.
It's just there's that you have your like top tier of talent, like that's very, very clear to see, right? For example, with the Star Ladder Major, Moses and Anders not being there initially in the talent lineup, the community had their say, and then Moses and Anders were almost like parachuted in commando style. So you clearly have your Henry G's, your Sadicus. I was about to say those guys, which is definitely an in-joke. And yeah, so Moses and Anders obviously got Machine, you got Stunner, so you've got this like top tier, and that's before I even get onto analysts like Sponge and Pimp and people. So there's clearly like those guys have to be at the big events, and then it's harder, I think, for newer talent to break through or to like get through that resistance.
Here's the question: why do these guys have to be at the big events?
That is a good question. I think because of the community and because they're the best at what they do.
But at the end of the day, which community are you listening to? Like, are you listening to the people who just want to create a well-crafted storyline? Like, what happens when you reach an event? So there was one event I attended in Malaysia, and we ended up having 6 casting pairs attend this event, and then they still wanted to cycle through them during the main event. And during one TI, I actually had 2 days off.
Wow.
During the main event of TI because we had 4 casting pairs there. And you're like, why is there so many people at this event? It's like every time if you're reading a book and you're going through and like every page you just change, is like the person telling the story's voice now totally changes. You're like, well, am I getting continuity here? Like, am I actually feeling like this is just one story that's being told? And I'm not saying that like, oh yeah, definitely shun these people, only the best tier 1 talent get to be there. But like, you're talking about like events where it's like, oh, they must have these top people. This major is a must to have them there. I was like, okay, when the majors come along like 3 times a year or 2 times a year, then yeah, this makes sense. When TI comes around once a year, yeah, this makes sense. But for a lot of tournaments, I find fans get very irate and will always get irate when people aren't included. Like every Dota event, Admiral Bulldog's not on the list. Rage comes through because it's just their community base that starts spamming up social media, and you feel this social pressure to hire and not the pressure of I need to actually have a well-rounded talent lineup that's going to function well with the product that I want to deliver.
Yeah, that's a very fine point. Sorry, I interrupted your flow, Toby.
Sorry, it's good. It's good. I always get a little annoyed about this because I hate events when I go and I'm just like, this is a waste of time to be here.
Yes, yeah, you want to make sure that you actually have enough to do. I certainly feel that way if I'm stage hosting without an audience. I'm like, why am I stage hosting? There's a stage, yes, but there's no one here in front of that stage, so there's no crowd to hype. The desk can go through the housekeeping.
Are you ready? Where is everybody?
Exactly. So I struggle. I actually feel like I don't do as good a job when I can't see why I'm doing that job, if that makes sense. So if there is something, a segment I'm doing where it's kind of tough to have any kind of content there, I look uncomfortable, and I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera, I'd say. I mean, I do it for a living. I'm doing it most of the time. But when I feel surplus to requirements, I do stumble a bit. I'm not good at faking things. Like, I am enthusiastic. I love my job, but I don't ever want to push myself out there for the sake of it. I'm not that person, I guess. So because my job is to interview normally, or to host a desk, so my job is not about me, it's about what's happening. So if you have to make it about you because there's nothing else to do, then it's an uncomfortable thing, personally. I'm interested though, obviously, in how you create your epic moments, because you're known for bringing the hype. I got to witness it in person when we worked on PGI 2018 together. So for listeners, that was the PUBG Global Championships back in Berlin, Mercedes-Benz Arena.
Oh, that's right. We work PUBG.
Yeah, I know. We'll definitely talk about PUBG. But for example, for me, I'm starting to learn Dota at the moment. I really want to play it. I really want to appreciate watching it more. Especially as TI is going to be in Europe, so if I can get over to Stockholm, I would love to. But like TI5, for example, I watched that. Some people call it the 5, some people call it the $6 million Echo Slam. I think it's the $6 million Echo Slam between EG on CDEC. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, it's incredible. I suppose that it's a perfect example of those moments coming from, okay, right, this is going to play out like this, and then you turning it around for the audience and just signifying how crazy that. I guess that I don't know if you can call it reverse sweep, but certainly a turnaround of the moment, because it's a Roshan fight.
See, it's the funniest thing. Like, that moment was kind of cool, and you have a lot of those kind of cool moments that exist. And it's not like that team fight changed anything. Really, the game would have still ended the same way. Like, EG would still probably have won. The timing was right. You could see it coming in. I could have brought up the extra detail of actually, CDEC saw them coming. When you do that, you kind of I'm happy to leave out some frames of this, so it actually feels like the move was a little bit more epic. That's like, when you watch those TV series and it's like in full high definition with however many hertz up, it's like, you know what, this doesn't even seem realistic to me anymore. Like, this is just like it's like every other American TV show I've got. But then you watch like something from the 1990s where they did everything at 25 FPS, 25 frames. You're like, you know what, this actually looks really cool, just because my brain's filling in the small gaps in the videos. I think the same kind of thing happens when you do commentary. Whereas I don't have to actually describe or reveal everything that's happening on this screen. And you're very happy just to bring people's attention to that one cool moment that happens.
What has been your proudest moment as a caster?
That's a real hard one. Because I don't think the proudest moment I had was actually during my primary career.
Okay.
Because I don't think like what I do inside the game is I do that inside the game, and I feel very good about that, and I think other people feel good when I do it. But I don't think that's kind of where I find my pride. I think my biggest pride was actually back when I was running a volunteer crew of commentators back in Australia, like just casting Call of Duty or whatever. This was when I think I had more pride, because I felt like I wasn't just out for me. I definitely like if you asked me that question probably 3-4 years ago, I'd probably say oh yeah, it was definitely when it was a disaster, it was the greatest moment ever in the history of esports, and go on that front. But I don't know, things have kind of changed with what I value these days, and just looking back at like how much of a difference that we made, the fact that we managed to band together a bunch of volunteers. None of us got paid. All of us spent too much money. There was no income whatsoever. Yet we managed to fully cover an entire country's scene for one game. It's like, this is cool. This is awesome, and we're all self-improving. Like that was nice to be the leader of that group back then. So yeah, I think that actually would probably be my most proud moment.
Why did your outlook change? Why did that become your most proud moment?
Well, I kind of struggled a lot with ego. It's and I think that's why I was proud back then, but I think I was still very gamerish, as in I'm in-game leader. I've won these tournaments. And I am amazing. I really have something of value to bring, kind of thing. It's a very heavy belief in yourself. But also is to the point where you blind yourself to any kind of consequence or any kind of problems that you do create for other people. So yeah, and then it got worse when I got a full-time job. And then people started labeling me as the voice of Dota. I'm like, oh, that's even better. And it wasn't until I had a bit of a couple of trip ups, and then you start questioning yourself. Am I actually as good as I think I am? Am I really this great? And every now and then I find myself slipping back into it. But a lot of the time I'm just like, no, it's just ego. It's just ego that makes you say really stupid shit. That makes you think that you are a lot better than what you are, and are less appreciative for the small things that people do for you and you do for them.
So reflecting then on 2018, you made a big move. 2017, you were showing signs of doing different projects and moving outside of the Dota scene that you had fast become known for, and you set up Best Meta and you created your own panel show as well. Well played. So tell me about Best Meta. Is that still going?
No. Okay. I after a few months of that running, due to directional differences, I basically was like, no, I got to get out of this.
Okay.
Really didn't like where it was going. The whole concept, though, is something I still strongly believe in, that there's a lot of people out there who create really high quality content, who have really good ideas, but just can't find a way to enable them. And that's all you really want to do, is the ability to enable these people who are going to actually make a change, and not just the people who are going to create the same stuff that's already being created. But the only way you know if someone's going to really make a change is if they're able to connect to a community, be it a small one at the beginning or a larger one that's already established, that's able to say okay, this guy or this girl, this group knows what they're talking about. They're creating something which is of interest. It's why I wanted to create my panel show, Well Played, because I always thought that Dota talent and eSport talent is heavily underrated. I watch a lot of panel shows. Literally last night in bed, I was watching Spicks and Specs, an Australian music show.
Is that Never Mind the Buzzcocks?
It's just like Never Mind the Buzzcocks. Yeah, and I watched these things, and out of 8 out of 10 cats, all these things, and I actually loved it. And I got to, I think it was what was his name, Patrick Titley or something like that. He won a BAFTA for actually doing these types of shows in the past. So he actually, we worked with University of York to create this, and he was directing for us during the show. But yeah, my idea was we just get these people into a place where they can actually show personality, where we can then talk about a common topic, gaming, and we can learn things along the way. We make it interesting, just the panel shows, I think, too. Every time you listen to a music panel show, you're like, oh, I know this. And you can play this with even the person who's right next to you. That's the type of atmosphere I wanted to try and create, and have it so people can really have their personalities out there. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to run the real season yet. We just got to do the pilot. But
you made a few episodes. You made a whole pilot season.
Yeah, we shot it all in.
Amazing.
We shot it all in 2 days.
Yeah,
1 day.
I personally, I would love to see it come back. I think Slacks is an amazing team captain. Basically, I want to be on it, Toby. So I think you have yourself. It's definitely Slacks. I'm so obsessed with Slacks. Like it's
that's fine. We're gonna have Slacks and Rich being
Rich.
the new.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say.
The new hosts.
Yeah, I think definitely Slacks, Rich, yourself. I would obviously love to be on it. Because I think I had this reputation as being a nice person for some reason. So I think I take people by surprise sometimes.
We can totally bring you on. Like when 8 out of 10 Cats does countdown.
Yes, what with Rachel Riley.
What's his name? The guy who comes on. And,
Joe. Yes.
Joe.
Yes, the comedian. I can't remember his name, but with the big beard.
Yeah, the big beard. Yeah, and
that would be me.
The assistant.
Oh my god.
We can put you into the assistant's role for our special segments on the side.
I like that, but I wouldn't be like Joe. I wouldn't be bumbling and nice. I'd be like bloody acid. But like I think Shocks would be amazing as a guest in that show. Obviously, Sheaves. I would love to see it back. I really hope you find a home for it because I think, especially as we see more networks and things popping up for gaming.
If someone's down to try and find the extra funding, because it costs us a hell of a lot to run, actually. Yeah, I feel like you can get a lot more done in the gaming world on a lower budget because people are just not as expensive. But if you just utilize some of these mainstream resources which are out there, and then you just add like that genuine quality of content in there, and don't just do it as though so there's this horrible show called Good Game that was released in Australia, and hilarious enough, I actually applied to be one of their hosts and they turned me down as I wouldn't move to Melbourne. I'm just like, yep.
Well, it got cancelled this year, Toby, so there you go.
It got cancelled because a lot of it I find when mainstream TV tries to create shows for gaming, they target it at very young audiences, and they do it in a very patronizing way. It's just like, aren't you you like gaming? Here's a side scroller. Isn't this amazing? Here's a Yoshi plushie. They think that's enough to connect to people. It's like, I did a Fortnite dance on screen. Now we're really cool. Now we're really hip. We connect with kids. It's like, no. Treat them as though, treat them with respect. Treat gamers with respect, and actually say, this is interesting stuff. This is important to them, and that's it. Don't just think you're creating just another kids show because it's the gaming genre.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see gaming shows actually aimed at the consumers who buy those games, because not many kids can. That's probably why they all play Fortnite now. There are many other reasons why they play Fortnite too, but I want to flex now quickly back to PUBG. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I do want to ask you found that experience. Because have you done Global Loot League, you've done GLL before you did PGI. Was PGI your first PUBG event?
No, yeah, I did a PGL event. I did
that's it. I'm confusing GLL and PGL. Yeah. Yes.
No, I did both. Actually,
oh my goodness.
It was So I actually had some stuff casting beforehand, and I cast with Moses before. Both those events with Moses before too.
Yes, WTF Moses.
Slacks even worked that PGL event at the very beginning. Yeah, and then all of the PUBG community seemed to hate the shit out of him, so he never worked again.
They need time, though. My first 3 days of doing PUBG, they were like, who the hell is this? And then by the end of it, they're just like, okay, yeah, she can come back.
Well, the funny thing is, what PUBG community as well? Most of them were just posting up over on the PUBG Reddit, talking about bug this, bug that, and wasn't this terrible? Or the grenade that went over the top of the guy's head, Shroud totally should have got that kill.
Yeah,
things like this. It's you just have these communities which never really get properly represented, and I think a lot of TOs make decisions based on the power they give to Reddit, the power they give to their social media answering, and they don't just say, we're doing this because this is why we're doing this. This is why this is going to make this better. I don't explain what I do. I just keep having a reactionary patchwork to my show just to make sure the audience is satisfied, but they don't know what audience they're really talking to.
So did you enjoy casting PUBG?
Yeah, that's what you're trying to go to. Yes, I actually really enjoyed casting PUBG. I like casting games which go at a different pace. It was nice to be back in a shooter. I actually did CSGO for a while. I actually got to cast with both Saticus and Henry G. at two different events.
It's so odd, though. I'm reading about you casting with Sadikis because you're two of the most iconic play-by-play casters.
It does not work.
Yeah.
It was terrible, absolutely horrendous. It was if you want a great case study for how not to enter a scene, that is a great case study of how not to enter a scene. Committing to casting in Romania with Sadikis night in, night out, for like however many weeks it was, doing CSGO and not understanding enough of the game and not having any analyst in there. It's just like, it was terrible. But when I cast with Henry G, I did a UK LAN. And that was good. Like, that actually worked really well. The two of us casting together. And it was just because like we got to be a natural duo and not the very forced duo that Sadikis and I were. But it was still fine. It was a great learning experience on that front. And getting into PUBG, like, it was a battle royale, and I feel like I had a better sense of what was important to talk about when doing a battle royale style cast, because no one really knew how to really cast battle royales, not properly. And if anyone did, like, they'd be like, it's just overconfidence talking. Like, this is definitely what you should be talking about. And you could really feel it as well with a lot of the commentators whenever they cast a battle royale. It's like, we should be looking at this right now. It would be a word that would be coming out, because it's like they're trying to tell production to look at what they think is important, which then just creates more hostile atmosphere and more like, what is battle royale doing? They don't know what the hell they're doing, kind of just vibe to it all. No, but I really enjoyed casting it. I think it had a lot of growing pains. I think it still has growing pains. And I don't think those growing pains are ever going to go away, because most people just try and stick to what they already do. They don't change it.
If it hadn't gone to a league or multiple global leagues, or not global, multiple leagues around the globe, I should say, Toby, do you think you would still be doing PUBG?
No.
So you say you wouldn't be doing PUBG anymore, even if there was opportunities to?
No. I don't see like when I cast a game, I want to still remain like interested in the game, or else, as we were discussing before, like, you're faking it. So like, I didn't want to do PUBG anymore because it was like it felt wrong. I didn't agree with the developers' decisions. I didn't agree with the format of the tournaments. I thought that nothing in the game started becoming like I always liked the positioning of PUBG. I always thought the movement was one of the most interesting things, and that's why whenever I cast PUBG, I'd always talk about a team moving around, flanking left, moving right. This is how you push up, pull back, where's safe spots, where's not safe spots. So this was interesting to me. And then you still realize the spectator bugs never got fixed. Like, the shots that people were ringing off were never actually what they were shooting. Like, you watch a game like CSGO, like, and someone's shooting an AWP, and like, it flies past the guy's head on your screen, but the guy still dies. You start to question this, and this wasn't being questioned with PUBG. And that's where it's like, you're not really seeing the skill of the players anymore, and that's the depth I think it needed to hit to keep the attention, to keep the prestige of what is a professional player, and not just saying like, well, this is now the result. Because the worst type of casting, and this is why I was very happy just to say like, no more PUBG. The worst type of casting is when you're just reading off a kill feed. And I couldn't bring myself to do that. And I could see it going that way. So I'm just like, no. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. Even the last PUBG event I actually did as a host. I actually had a Freaks for You studio. And it was like Gareth and G Clef, who were the guys who were doing the casting. And then we came back out of it. And that was it. Like, it's like, that's where I was very happy just to call it quits, because I don't think the game was ever going to fix itself.
I think that's a sensible decision, and I can totally respect that. Now, before I let you go, because I'm now trying to get into Dota as a player, and I really want to kind of watch and support you guys when you're doing events, because I had so much fun. I've talked about this in the previous 2 episodes. I had so much fun at ESL1 Hamburg. That was like one of my favorite green rooms I've been in. It was just really fun. I'm sorry if I was disruptive.
No,
it was just lovely.
It's always crazy whenever Rich comes to an event.
Is it so? It's not normally like that, or
no.
Really?
It is not normally like that.
Yeah, it was just really fun to hang out with you guys, to hang out with like Slacks and Rich and Will and Carl and everyone, and just experience that family, I suppose. Do you feel like the Dota 2 talent are a family, or are they just colleagues?
I think in a lot of regards, there's a lot of family connections. I think in some other regards, we're definitely colleagues. Like it comes and goes. Like sometimes you don't see these people for a long period of time because the event work is just spaced out, or maybe you see them a hell of a lot, and it just becomes very standard. Like, oh, we're just meeting up down at the pub like normal. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's I'm a bit of an introvert when I'm at events. Like you may have noticed, like I'm not the one who's talking in the green room. I'm not the one who's like the center of attention. Like I'm just sitting on the side. If someone engages with me, I'll engage back with them. So like I kind of sit on the outside edges of that family little network, the boys club or whatever it becomes. So yeah, I don't know if I can really say perfectly for the Dota talent, but I definitely know there's definitely some good networks. The original hubs where like BTS original talent will always have that connection. Same with the current talent there. Yeah, so there's definitely camaraderie.
I want to ask though finally about the future. What's the plan? Because you are free to do whatever games you want to do. So what are you hoping for in 2020?
So in 2020, like I'm only doing Dota now. I feel it's very like I have other things on the side that I'm trying to do, and it's very like it's a disservice to get hired for an event if I am not preparing or if I'm not prepared for it. So doing multiple games is just not possible with all the other stuff that I really want to achieve. So it's only Dota events leading up. We'll see what happens after TI10. And I'm actually working more on community development stuff. So I actually put out a couple of weeks ago that I'm doing an eSport talent course here in London with a partner called Stay Club. So I'll be actually doing it's 1 week, it's 4 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and students sign up and they're able to learn from me for a course that I actually made on just like a lot of the basics that you need to try and nail for casting. So I feel it's very important to try and improve this scene that we're part of. It's kind of almost back to what we were talking about very early on. Like I felt a lot of pride about my caster network and being able to actually help develop this. And I feel like that type of support doesn't come inside of esports these days. Everyone's very much out for themselves. And the people that you do get that will support you, it's going to be there for a little bit, but doesn't really sustain. And just how useful is this? Normally, it's only one person's perspective. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually building up more materials and building up more support stuff. Through my new project.
And just in case this podcast comes out after that course, are you planning to do any more in the future?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. So I'm actually running one in 2 weeks' time. And they'll run for 1 week, and when the demand is there, we just book the room up and run it all up again. So it's really easy.
Where is the best place for people to tell you that they demand to be part of this course, Toby?
Well, they can just send me anything on my social media. Just make sure I see it. And if not, I suppose I have a Discord server. DMs. And you can also apply for that course. I think it's stayclub.com/esports for that one. But I have some other cool things to announce coming into 2020, which should be a lot more useful to a global audience too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I'll put the links to your socials and to the course in my podcast description. And thank you so much for spending some time with me and telling me about your life in esports, Toby.
Not a problem, Frankie.
Thank you so much to Toby for talking to me. If you fancy getting into esports, definitely check out the links to his new school in the podcast description. I'm going to link to his socials as well. I mean, I imagine you know how to find him on the internet. It's Tobiwan, after all. He's huge. Like, his following's 4 times the size of mine. So it was really cool that he made time for me because I know he's a very busy man. Now, I'm having some thoughts about the podcast for next year. Namely, that I'm so ad hoc with this that should I essentially copy other people I've seen who do podcasts and that, and do seasons rather than trying to release them as and when. Like, my effort is to do every 2 weeks, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So I'm now wondering, do I record in blocks of 6? Like, one of my favourite podcasts, Table Manners with Jessie Ware and her mum Lenny, that is always in blocks as well. Even though it never feels like there's too far apart between seasons, it's super convenient. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. Do let me know. You can tweet me at GetFrank. And if you want to look at pictures of my face or my Instagram stories, check out how we're renovating our house, then Get Frank Games is my Instagram, and I will be streaming as much as I can on my Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/Frankie. Don't know what I'm doing at the start of next year yet, so I may very well be streaming a lot more than usual. We will see. But I want to say a very, very Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and to those of you who've got in touch with me this year and have supported me, even if that's just in Twitch chat during an ESL event, for example. Thank you so much. That's beyond lovely of you, and to know that people enjoy what I do is just amazing, right? This is super cool. I mean, I don't try not to think about it too often because otherwise, like, my head would explode, I guess, but yeah, a couple of years ago, this was definitely not my life, and now it is. So thank you so much for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. I think my job would not be the same without that. So it really, really helps. So thank you. Have an amazing Christmas. Have a very, very happy New Year. My birthday's between Christmas and New Year. I'm so annoying. So I'm going to have some time off to kind of relax, and normally I go away between my Christmas and New Year anyway, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to be off to, but that's why I think it's probably best for me to go, right, this is the last podcast of the year, come back next year and hopefully have a slew of episodes for you. Make your New Year's resolutions, guys. I mean, if you fancy it. Either way, have a brilliant end to 2019, and I will speak to you guys in 2020. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas!